Hello, everybody. Welcome to this channel. It's so good to be back. I've had a bit of a break due to my own personal life changes, but I have so missed creating this content. And I'm delighted now today to present to you this topic, this painful topic, which I've titled the denied pain of the parentified child. Now, for those of you that have followed my channel previously, you'll know that I'm a psychotherapist and I work with clients all around the world doing psychotherapy. I've changed the way I work a little bit now. I'm bringing in more of a spiritual approach, hence the lighted candle in the background here. Um, so let's dive straight into this topic, the denied pain of the parentified child. So I've got a couple of questions to ask you. First of all, did you have a parent who at times put you in a position of being an equal adult, or did they look to you for advice or direction? This is when you were a child, and even now as well, as an adult. Did they have, did you have a parent who was anxious and not able to cope with adult things or the world at large? Was your parent reactive to a world that they saw as full of danger? Were they sometimes overwhelmed by coping? Now, look, before we dive in here, this is not a blame game. This is, there's no harder job on earth than to be a parent. Um, and, if you were a parentified child, that means that your parent had their own experience of being parentified. However, this multi-generational pattern is highly, highly destructive and it must be addressed. And I hope in some ways this little video here will help you to connect with some of the ways that this is a bit like an infestation in our lives. So the most painful part, I think, of being a parentified child, if that was you, this experience it's being sort of subconsciously aware that let's say your mother's hope, and I'll refer to mothers in this video, you're subconsciously aware that your mother's hope for soothing, for relief, is in you. You are her hope, in other words. All her hope is in you. You are her lighthouse. You are her safety. And she looks to you for that safety. She looks to you, her child. And I imagine that you did everything you possibly could in your own, capacity as a child to provide what she needed, that safety. That it meant being strong somehow and pretending to be an adult yourself. But the thing is, you weren't an adult. And you couldn't have known how to handle the things that your mother couldn't because you were the child. So often you may have found yourself frantically trying to think of something helpful or wise or encouraging to say or do. But this meant that you had to suppress the very real terror of knowing you had to adult for your mother, as she was not able to. Just the fact that your parent saw in you the hope for the love and safety she had always sought is a hugely sad situation for not only you, but also for her. You see, as a child, you absorbed all your mother's anxiety, all her distress, all her fears. You felt it. You felt her anxiety, her underlying pain that was there. And because she turned to you, you had to become her hope. You were the only hope she had in her hopeless world. And that sadness was something you unconsciously felt so deeply in your own soul. You actually wanted to be her hope. You wanted to be her answer. You desperately did. But the awful reality is you could never do it. You could never live up to what she needed, because you could never, ever escape disappointing her. And why? Why could you not escape disappointing her? Well, number one, you were not an adult and you couldn't give her what she needed. You could only try desperately to fathom what that was. You know, if your advice was good, she might be pleased sometimes, but if it was bad, she would be disappointed in you. Or if things didn't work out, she might just blame you anyway. And then you would hate yourself for causing her more pain and more despair. And two, you walked a tightrope, because if your advice or your action was helpful, she may be pleased, like I said, but then quickly feel quite threatened with you as the parent. She may be exposed, she may feel exposed as a result of your parenting. She may even shame you for being too big for your boots, or, well, look at you, bit of a know-it-all, getting, big-headed. And this is an attempt to rebalance the power imbalance. Often she may even have sort of tried to flaunt in front of you her confidence or her adulthood, or found a reason to mock your advice in some way. She had to do this. She had to one-up you so as not to feel less than you or exposed. So there's such a difficult balance here. You know, one hand looking to you to be the adult and the parent, and then the other hand feeling vulnerable and threatened by you in that role. I mean, it's quite surreal, really, to see in reality this kind of family dysfunction. When your mother parentified you, she was really asking you, her child, to show her how to grow up. She was asking you to grow her up, to show her how to be an adult. You were there to be her rock, her safety amidst the storms of life, and she needed you to make her the center of your world, because without you, she would be left without hope, without a light. Can you see now how this creates such a deep bond of guilt in the child with their mother? I mean, if you are the hope of another human being in their hopeless world, how can you ever think of leaving them, of abandoning them? How can you ever knowingly choose to disappoint them by going your own way or having your independence, an independent life? Your own pain of doing this would be too much. It's the pain of removing hope from mum and leaving her in her hopeless world alone that imprisons you as captive parent forever. This is why it is so hard to find freedom from being parentified. It's because we don't want to feel our own pain at allowing mum to feel hers. But on the other hand, mum didn't always want you parentified. She sometimes, when she was perhaps higher in self-esteem or feeling a bit more confident or full of supply, she wanted you to be infant-like. She may even have looked a bit annoyed if you interacted or showed up as an adult or gave advice on these occasions, as if you're being just too haughty or full of yourself. And it's probably the same now in your relationship with her. It was in these times that she was triggered by you as the parent in the relationship because you reminded her of her own shaming bad parent. And she may often have shown her disgust by your parading as a parent. It was as if you were flaunting yourself in front of her. So the thing is, she dictated when she needed you to be a good parent. It wasn't always, it was only at certain times, and you had to be aware of when those times were. But don't think you get to be parent always. No, you must stop it when she needs infantile you so that she can feel adult again. And you need to toe the line in that. So it's a very confusing, very uncertain role to be in as a child. You're never quite sure of what you need to be, but it's certainly never your authentic you. You've got to be the you that responds to the needs of your mother in her chaotic world. So how does all of this affect us? Well, in a myriad of ways as adults. I'm only going to talk about two things here, but really it affects us to the core. Number one, you may find that anxiety rules your own life because you were never parented. And so you're still trying to put on an act of being an adult in your adult life. You learn to put on that act. Number two, you're still deeply guilty at not living up to the hope that mum had of you. And so you believe subconsciously that you are a failure and that you will never reach your full potential. You have hugely high expectations of yourself and are forever placing yourself in a situation where you will be a disappointment. And you view yourself as that, as inadequate. Now, the funny thing is, in order to begin rectifying this, actually, we do need to become the adult and grow ourselves up. And it can feel a bit sad in some ways. You know, I think there is a mourning that we need to go through that we didn't have the parenting we needed, and now we've got to do it for ourselves, even though we've longed for that parent relationship. How lovely it might have been. We have to learn ways now of coping with life and of facing our own fears of the world and realizing that we can handle them. And that's where therapy can come in, especially if you work with me. I've created a very helpful tool. It's called the Trigger Relief Tool. And I have clients using it all the time, daily, myself included. And it is the work of growing yourself up. It is the work of being your own parent to that scared, terrified inner child. And lastly, I would say to you, you know, take action every day. Make sure you check in with yourself daily and say, am I showing up here as my adult, mature me, or am I showing up as that scared child? To really begin to embody the good parent you in your daily interactions, rather than looking for other people to parent you. I hope this is helpful. That pain that's there is really your mother's pain. And it's time to let go of the guilt about not being able to remedy it, because it's not your job. And that's where the work I do is spiritual, because ultimately, I believe only God can relieve that pain that your parents experienced. And He is the hope that we're all looking for, ultimately. Take care, everyone, and I'll be making more content again very soon. And if you'd like to work with me, please look at my website, www.delightinyou.com. Take care. Bye now.